Today, nearly 1,000 members of that gay community are already dead of AIDS, and no one knows where it will stop. So today they are more concerned with staying alive than with staying in power. Back in the mid-'70s, that gay community was such a powerful force in San Francisco that they were able to get one of their own, a gay activist named Harvey Milk, elected as city supervisor. One of his friends was a young political activist named Cleve Jones.
5 years ago, Cleve, the gay community in San Francisco was at its peak, if you will. Powerful.
Well, we certainly were powerful, and I think it was a new experience for many of us, so...
How do you mean?
Well, you're talking about one of the most powerless and despised minorities in our society, so I think that when we made a little bit of progress, we were quite excited by it.
One memorable night back in 1979, that gay community and the city's political leaders marched together to mark the first anniversary of the murders of the gay supervisor, Harvey Milk, and Mayor George Moscone, a man who was sympathetic to their cause. Cleve Jones led that march, and he spoke of a powerful, dedicated gay community and of their future.
How many of you have heard from behind, "Hey, faggot! Hey, dyke!" That is why we are here tonight. That is why we marched on Washington. That is why we will keep on marching. It will be a long struggle. And we will have leaders and slogans and martyrs aplenty. But let no one misunderstand. We are deadly serious. We are growing in power with every day that passes. And we will not be stopped.
But no one could foresee how different their future was going to be. This is the Castro Street in San Francisco. Time was, this street teemed with life. It was a place to be openly gay, a mecca for gay men. But today, almost 1,000 gay men have died. And the Castro is a sober place, with reminders of the fear that now infects the community.
We're all scared to death. We'd like to know what the hell we're supposed to do here. You know, what should we do? Should we stay home and lock ourselves back in the closet? Or, what should we do?
You can understand the fear when you realize that almost everyone here has lost someone close to him.
I lost my best friend.
Did you?
4 years ago. He died of pneumocystis pneumonia. And I watched him die. I watched him just right in front of me, just disintegrate.
You have AIDS, Chris?
Yes, I do.
How long you had AIDS?
I'm a newcomer, just a couple of months ago. Specifically, I have toxoplasmosis, which is a viral infection of the brain.
What is the prognosis?
The prognosis?
Yeah, what's the future?
I don't deal with the prognosis because I find it's not acceptable to me. But the prognosis is probably 5 to 6 months.
Each of these men has AIDS, and they, like hundreds of others here, need help. They share their fears together. They give each other emotional support.
This is not the type of experience that you can have alone and make it through with any amount of sanity left.
Fear? Bobby?
I guess for me it's the fear of the unknown that's difficult. At 3 o'clock in the morning you wake up and you think, what's next? Who's next?
It's almost like the plague.
Well, it is a plague. A lot of people don't want to use that word, but from where I sit, it's a plague. It's terrible. You watch these people die, and they're young. They're people just like me, from the neighborhood, and
they don't die easily. They don't die quickly.
It takes 15 months on the average, and they end up skeletons. I'm 31 years old, and I've watched a great many of my friends die.
Dr. Paul Volberding heads the AIDS team at San Francisco General Hospital.
How many AIDS patients do you see in a week?
We see in the range of 300 to 400 patient contacts per week. 300 is an average week for us.
And how many of those will end up dying?
The mortality for the disease is close to 100%. Ultimately, within 3 years, most patients die.
This is Ward 5A, the AIDS ward. Since 1981, Dr. Volberding and his colleagues, doctors, nurses, volunteers, have been working to relieve the suffering of those who have AIDS and to help ease the pain of dying. Unlike the rest of the country, where intravenous drug use and transfusion of infected blood are also major causes of the disease, nearly all cases of AIDS in San Francisco have been transmitted by gay men to gay men. Russell learned he had AIDS just a few weeks ago when he was admitted to the hospital having trouble breathing.
How are you feeling in terms of the symptoms of the pneumonia now?
My breathing is much better. I can breathe much easier, and I'm able to talk without having to catch my breath, so it's much better.
The extreme shortness of breath that Russell's talking about is really pretty common with this kind of pneumonia.
Is this a situation that is special to AIDS?
It's not an organism that's just seen in AIDS patients, but it's only seen in people whose immune systems are very damaged for one reason or another.
So mysterious.
Boy, is it. And the only thing is, once it's there, it's there.
Well, we hope not. That's the real key now is to try to find some drugs to turn things around.
That sure would be great.
Visitors are allowed on this ward 24 hours a day, and Russell's lover, Alex, has barely left his side.
And I think our job at this point is to keep him healthy and positive so that when the cure does come, and I do believe that is going to come, that he'll be able to take the cure and we'll have a long time together.
Yeah.
So we're thinking pretty positive on that.
Well, we'll share that. We all do.
You hear so many stories about how it's transmitted. How is it transmitted?
That's an easy question to answer. It's in most respects, a garden variety venereal disease. It's transmitted by sexual contact.
Kissing?
It's hard to believe that saliva is a real way that this virus is transmitted. If it were, we would have seen the boundaries of the disease, of the epidemic, blurred. We would have seen much more AIDS in friends of patients and family members. We just don't see it.
Tears?
Again, I think it can't be transmitted that way.
Toilet seats?
Absolutely not.
Food handling?
Not a way it's spread. Sex. Think of sex, and I think that's where we should really focus the attention.
Anal intercourse?
Well, again, I think we don't know which sexual practice is the riskiest. I think there is some reason to think that anal intercourse is riskier if condoms aren't used than vaginal intercourse in the case of heterosexuals. Just for anatomic reasons, trauma, exposure to the bloodstream.
Public, promiscuous, easy sex. Isn't that what brought on the AIDS epidemic?
I would say that certainly sexual habits obviously have to change, and we are changing our habits. And when you look at the statistics for venereal disease, when you look at the surveys done of gay men, you find that the overwhelming majority have completely cleaned up their act. And
venereal disease is way down here since people have been less promiscuous.
The overwhelming majority, see what is happening and respond immediately.
And change their lifestyle.
Absolutely. And, people keep talking about gay men as if we are some peculiar breed of people with no feelings or sense at all. And we're the ones that are bearing the brunt of this thing.
The gay community is bearing the brunt of it. But even here in San Francisco, the fear of getting AIDS has spilled over into the straight community.
I have found David, my servant. With my holy oil have I anointed him.
The Episcopal Church of St. John the Evangelist, just a few blocks from Castro Street. In many San Francisco churches, the AIDS epidemic has even caused a controversy about whether the congregation should continue to drink wine from the communal chalice. The bishop here at St. John's has ordered that they continue to give out communion as they always have, by sharing the cup. Those who are afraid to receive it don't have to.
Has it not occurred to you that at this instant, people looking in are saying, serves them right, these dirty so-and-sos?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. There are those people out there that talk about their God and this being God's wrath. But my belief is in a different God that is understanding, loving, and compassionate. So my God would not punish me for a virus entering my body and me becoming ill from it.
Has there been no backlash against the gay community because of the AIDS crisis?
I've been very pleased to see almost none at all.
Dianne Feinstein is mayor of San Francisco.
Now, there is some problem always in jobs. You're going to have some discrimination. In housing, you're going to have some discrimination. But by and large, it has not been large. It's scattered and it's occasional.
It costs less to care for an AIDS patient here in San Francisco than anywhere else in the country. We asked the mayor why.
Largely because of the community itself. You have Operation Concern, you have Shanty, you've got other projects which are really dealing with education. You have an AIDS hotline. People can get the information to know how not to get the disease, and that's very important. So that's one thing. The second thing is having hospice care, being able to have halfway houses, finding a place for people to live so that they don't have to stay in a hospital at $500 a day, and then seeing that when they're living in the community that they get good, compassionate care.
Cleve Jones said that because the gay community of San Francisco was so well organized politically, they were able to mobilize their numbers quickly and efficiently and get all those support services working for them. These people are part of the Shanti Project, a mostly gay organization that provides support for AIDS victims. Beyond nursing and counseling, they find apartments like this one for patients who can no longer remain alone. And they have volunteers who cook, clean, and shop for the patients. Helen Scheitinger is one of the directors.
It's just hard to accept help when you're not used to needing it.
What y'all do for us is just as if it were our family, you know, and it makes it a lot easier. A lot easier.
Since the epidemic began, Shanti has been responsible for training over 2,000 people, volunteers mostly, to be with AIDS patients as they live and finally die. Jim Geary is the head of Shanti.
I feel AIDS has had a very healing effect on the whole community of San Francisco, and that we're really at the height of our power. And that's not a power that comes through exhibition, but a power that's deep within our souls. So it feels much stronger being gay these days than it ever has to me.
Apparently, the San Francisco community generally, and especially the San Francisco gay community, is coping remarkably well.
At the same time, I think they're coping, but and it's maybe to some extent brought the community together and brought the medical and the gay community closer together, much more understanding than there was. But it's a community that's been devastated by this disease. You can't have a situation where 1 out of every 2 people is infected with a virus that might be lethal ultimately, and not have a lot of problems in that community. I think that's a community with a lot of fear.
You say that 1 out of every 2 people?
1 out of every 2 gay men in the city is estimated now to be infected with the AIDS virus.
Of 70,000 men?
35,000 are probably infected.
You yourself have been tested positive for AIDS?
Yes.
What does that mean? Explain it.
It means that somewhere along the line, I have been exposed to the HTLV3 virus, which is believed to cause AIDS. It doesn't tell me too much more than that. It doesn't tell me if I'm still actively carrying the virus. It doesn't tell me if I am infectious. It doesn't tell me if I'm going to come down with the disease. There are probably 4 or 5 million Americans that are sitting in my shoes right now. And I think it's very, very important for them and for people around them that we address this in an honest and positive way.
Dear God, we ask you especially to move upon the hearts and minds of civic officials and others to see to it that the appropriate funding might be forthcoming in an adequate way.
Across the plaza from City Hall, these men have been holding an AIDS vigil for the past 5 months. Many of them have AIDS or AIDS-related condition, and they have chained themselves to the federal building to focus Washington's attention, they hope, on their affliction. For while the city of San Francisco leads the nation with their commitment of money and services to AIDS patients, the federal government has been slow to respond. And now many fear that that small allotment will be cut, that there will be less money for research. And so, this year, on the anniversary of the deaths of Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk, it was a different gay community that marched toward City Hall, many of them carrying the names of loved ones who have died from AIDS. And it was a very different speech that Cleve Jones delivered. One that spoke not of political power. Instead, it was a plea for understanding and a call for help.
We want to live. That is all we want, America. Are we so different from you? And now our numbers have been diminished. And many here among us tonight have been already condemned to an early and painful death. But we are pledged to the memory of those who have fallen and those who will follow to see this struggle through to the end. We send this message to America. We are the lesbians and gay men of San Francisco. And though we are again surrounded by uncertainty and death, we are survivors. We shall survive again, and we shall be the strongest and most gentle people on this earth.